Welcome to the Iconic Production channel. I am here with a good and dear friend, Richard Rowland, who has been on the show many times. Was a key contributor to the grand campaign that we were doing. We need to do our like how to end a grand campaign at the very
Yeah,
least, right? Because the whole point is a grand
yeah,
campaign doesn't just linger.
right.
Uh, it goes out with a not with a whimper at least, maybe not with a bang, but
Yes. Yes, it goes out with a series of problems that you set up, which become the source of future campaign content.
that's
But we'll
right.
talk about it some other time. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we have been the reason we have not been doing a lot of grand campaigns on the Iconic Production channel is because of this image that you see right to that side of me. Amboria role playing in the world under Starlight is officially live. It is a passion project that we were able to bring to Kickstarter through Strange Owl Games. So big thanks to Strange Owl Games, which isn't a
Yeah.
little self-congratulatory, but I have business partners that I had to.
I mean, I'm certainly very, very grateful for Tim and you and just everybody else who has made this an opportunity that is happening.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we are already at $5,300. We're almost 50% through our initial funding goal.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, so
So I mean, yeah.
go
So
ahead, Richard. Like
yeah.
we're
So
gonna show the video off. We're gonna show all the cool art that Bob Crumb has done for us for this. Just wanted to. He actually sent me a new piece. We're gonna update the Duelist of Senkenkar. He did a couple of final like little tweaks for it. So
nice. Nice. Yeah, so I mean, first of all, thanks so much to everybody who has backed this thing out of the gate. Performance in like your first couple of days on Kickstarter are, as I understand it, pretty important for the algorithm. And obviously, everything we do as humans is for the benefit of the algorithm. So,
that's right. All
no,
praise
no,
the
but seriously,
algorithm.
I'll praise the algorithm. No, seriously, I'm really, really grateful for everybody. I know that we have it's a fun Venn diagram of like my interests and my friend groups
Hmm.
uh, are like um, that we have that we have symbolic world folks who follow me for like the medieval universal history stuff that I do, and then also Aquarita readers who are just into it because it's a world that they already love. And then also just people from like kind of my game design, wargaming, tabletop gaming friend groups. And so anyway, super grateful for everybody and for kind of making this happen.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and we, Jam and I, we were just discussing right before this, some ways to say thank you to the community. So I have a poem that I've been working on since last fall, called "The Elder Lay of Senkan." It is a pretty cool poem. We did a reading of it here at the house
Yeah.
um, back in 2 or 3 weeks ago now. Did a reading of the finished version of the poem, and people who, some of whom, know nothing at all about the world under starlight, just were totally in love with it and really enjoyed it. And somebody said, I think you've been underselling how metal the setting. And so I have an edition of this poem that's basically it's got footnotes explaining all the references for people who are new to the world under starlight. And I think that we're just going to give it to backers as a day one, like a thank you for signing up and getting on board. And here's just like a little taste of what you can expect. And yeah, next couple of months for me are just going to be lots of all the writing is done for both books, but the campaign book in particular needs to be um, arranged in a way that makes sense to another human mind, right? So
Yeah.
that's my big focus right now.
I
It's one
feel
thing
that
to like,
pain. I'm like,
I
Fall of the Children of Bronze makes complete sense to me,
right,
but
right.
it doesn't make sense to anyone else.
Here's 100,000 words worth of notes that I wrote by hand in a bunch of notebooks.
Hmm.
Coworkers thinking I'm the Unabomber.
Yeah,
Like
you gotta get that Charlie Day gif, right? Where
right,
Charlie
right.
Day's in front of the
Yes,
conspiracy
exactly.
board. It all is
Yes,
connected.
it's all connected. Yeah, so I'm that's the big thing I'm working on right now. Pretty much every day is putting that together and rewriting some stuff as well, and also just when I come up with new content, just putting it in there for the heck of it. So I'm going to try to keep things under the page count that I promised to the publisher because otherwise I'll get in trouble. But
Don't
Yeah,
worry,
so
my wife will sacrifice many of your sacred cows on the threshing floor of
yeah,
editing.
that's fair.
Yeah,
That's fair.
yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. So um yeah, so that's kind of where we are. And just I don't know, like I'm very happy and excited, and also like really don't know what to say, because like uh, people are excited about the project. There's like 11 people who have backed at the level to like play in a game with me.
Yeah.
I didn't even know how that's a thing, but I love it. And yeah, so
We're gonna keep rolling on it. I don't know if I told this story to you, but one of the best Clash rules came from Trisha. The whole when you both critical, the mutual death rule. Um, if you critical on attack and the person criticals on their defense, you both inflict max damage with no armor, and if you happen to survive, you get a fate point. That is because the original rule that I wrote, Trisha talked my ear off for nearly a half hour about how poorly designed that rule was and how it was no fun for anyone, and that this is the way it should work. And I was like, no, no, that's actually a way better rule. That's a way better rule. You
I mean,
actually, oh,
it's
go ahead.
really handy to have wives that game with you,
It
right?
is.
Because my wife is also like my first. My wife has a brain made for breaking character builds. So like, if there's like a way to like look at a rule system and come up with like what's the most OP broken build, like she'll find it. And so a lot of times it's she's kind of my barometer. Like if I run a mechanic past her and I'm like, here, try this with your character, and then she just doesn't use the mechanic, then I know it's no good.
Yeah.
And so then I'll retool it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
If she wants to
Yeah.
engage with it, you've got
Yes.
something
Yes.
worthwhile.
Yes.
Now you also have, so Amboria uses the same rules as Jackals, which is the Bronze Age
Yes.
role playing game that I wrote. You actually have a rule in the Jackals rule book.
Yes. What is it called? Is it the
I think
Richard
I call it the Roland rule.
rule?
The Roland
The
rule, yeah,
Roland rule. Yeah.
yeah. Where
Yeah.
if you actually write your own song,
Yeah.
you get extra advancements.
Because this is the thing that I do. Like in
Mm-hmm.
every game that I play in, like I'm a poet, and I can't you know yeah it's just kind of what I go to. Like if I really care about something, then I'm like, okay, but people would have songs, they would have stories, they would have and so yeah, we'll have something like that in this game as well, because I mean the exciting and also terrifying part of taking a world that you love deeply and then sharing with other people is also opening up to them and saying, now go tell your own stories and
Yeah,
make this your own thing, right?
it's
So that's one
terrifying.
of the things that I'm excited and terrified about
Mm-hmm.
seeing
Yeah.
as people start to play it. Yeah.
Now we're going to try and do at least one of these a week where we talk about Amboria, talk about stretch goals, what's coming up, what's going on. So we're going to take a quick. We're going to show the video off first, and then we'll go to the. We'll go look at the page, talk about the add-ons that we have, the reward
Hmm.
levels, and the stretch goals that we have that hopefully we'll be hitting here in the next 24 to 48 hours. The first couple. So.
Yep.
Welcome to Amboria, a world 20 years in the making. Strange Owl Games is excited to bring you Amboria, role-playing in the world under Starlight. From the mind of Richard Rowland, co-host of the Amansul podcast and Medieval Universal History on the Symbolic World. In Amboria, Richard's deep love of symbolism, poetry, and history meet to offer a gaming experience like none other. In this rich and unique fantasy world, adventurers fight monsters, uncover ancient secrets, and find themselves immersed in the stories and legends of another place and time. As their reputation and influence grows, they find themselves thrust into the crossfire of political machinations in a kingdom on the edge of ruin. Powered by the Clash system used in Jackals, Bronze Age fantasy role-playing, Amboria provides fast, intuitive, and reactionary rules for combat, travel, and building your community. The Clash system was already famous for its fast and deadly combat. We've taken this dynamic system and integrated the liturgical and poetic depths of the world under Starlight directly into the game mechanics. Amboria, role-playing in the world under Starlight. Back it today.
I don't know who did the voiceover for that, but we have.
So
Hold on, we got
So
Ryan in the Ryan Veneering in
Oh.
the chat. He did Blackbirds, the T-shirt that I'm actually wearing right now. This is
he did the
amazing.
T-shirt or he did the game?
He did the game. He
Oh,
did the
that's so
Blackbirds game.
cool.
Yeah,
That's such a great game.
yeah. It's a
Oh man,
great
I'm a
game.
huge
It's
fan. That's
beautiful.
crazy.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
I will talk about Blackbirds all the time. But
Yeah.
what were you
Oh,
saying? Yeah.
I was gonna say something fun about the voiceover is, I mean, it's obviously it's my voice. Maybe that's not obvious. It's my voice. Um, I have like a reading voice, after like years of podcasting and broadcasting and everything else, I have kind of a reading voice. It's not intentional. I just sort of slip into it. Even at home when I'm reading to kids, I just kind of slip into this lower register. But the if you listen, you'll hear the accent is slightly off. And I kid you not, this is how deep the rabbit hole goes for me. This is my Amborian accent,
Yeah.
right? So there's a whole like linguistic component of the project, and someday it'll probably come out to the Patreon first, and then maybe we'll publish it later. Someday I'll release like the full grammar and dictionary,
Oh man, that'd be amazing.
which needs like significant work at this point. Again, it's like indecipherable to somebody who's not me probably, but just because the language has been like it's gone through so many stages, so I need to go back and move things around. But um, there's a huge linguistic component to all of this. That's what my training, my academic training is in.
Yeah.
And so because of the way that the language works, it's built around, certain phoneme clusters, and there's certain sounds go together and other sounds don't. English has rules like this as well, which is why English doesn't like, we don't like to do like a B, D sound.
Yeah.
But like the constant, there's certain consonant clusters which just don't work in English, right? Well, so Amborian, the language, also has rules for this. And if you follow the rules, you'll talk in a certain way. So that's
your
how you
Amborian.
would speak if you were speaking Amborian. So like if I read Amborian text, which I've written a lot of stuff, including, translated a lot of the poetry into Amborian.
Yeah.
If you read that poetry, that's how it sounds. And I wasn't doing it at all intentionally for the recording, actually.
It's
just like
natural.
I was reading like Amborian words as part of the recording, and then it just kind of came out. So yeah, so that's the Amborian accent, everybody. If you want to know how people from the lands around the sea talk, that's what we sound like. Yeah. So
On a complete tangent, because I was just going to say I read my Blackbirds game last night, and it was delightful. You should be used to the rabbit trailing that goes on here on the show. I have to do an after action report for my Blackbirds game on behind the screens later, because we're here for Amboria. Ryan says Amboria looks cool, and I agree. I'm really excited about this. So
well, it's a high compliment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree. Blackbirds is perhaps the most interestingly written game that I have encountered. Even last night. All right, I'm going to just take a digression. Sorry, Richard.
Go for it. Do it.
So one of my players is very close to hitting the second stage of a disease, the child of Anelios. And the intermediate tier affliction starts off with, "Oh, monstrous countenance, how you tax the soul." Like, why don't people write more games just like this? Oh, here we are. So we've got some great art. Bob did all of our borders. Bob Crumb, Mr. Bob Crumb. If you have followed him, you know he's a dear friend of the show, a dear friend of mine. Has played in our Horror at Headstone Hill Deadlands game. And he did these images like illuminated manuscript introductions was what he was going for. Yeah, Ryan says he's impressed that you created a language. Richard's love of language is probably the first thing we bonded over all those years ago. So High Adventure, this is talk.
Oh, well, let me just say about the language. I actually, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but just to let people know what they're in for. I hate self-promotion, right? But like, okay. So I didn't create just a language. I have a whole family of languages, because actually the Amborian language is a composite language of sort of two ancestor languages. So most of the grammar and the syntax, and I would say like maybe 75% of the vocabulary comes from the language of the Trayan people, who are basically they're stars that came to Earth in the setting. Stars and planets are people. So these are stars that came to Earth for a variety of reasons. And they're a little bit like maybe like the medieval concept of fairies or the Longavi, the long livers in that sense. That's one of the ancestor people of the Amboria, or the main culture that the setting is about. And so like I said, about 75% of the vocabulary as well as the syntax and the grammar comes from that language. But there's also another ancestor language, something called Dalian, or like Proto-Dalian, which is spoken by the Dalian being like a federation of human tribes to the south. But there were some of them that came up very early in the history, and settled in the lands around the sea, and they intermarried with the Trayan when they migrated east. And so basically, those two people groups intermarried, integrated, and because the Trayan culture was larger, much more advanced, much more like prestigious, right? The language is still like mostly Trayan descended, but certain very old words, and kind of the same way that in English, a lot of our vocabulary is Latinate, usually coming from French. But our 100 most commonly used words are of Anglo-Saxon origin, right? Because English is, in its origin, is a West Germanic language. So the same kind of a thing here, where there's like a core group of words that are very commonly used words, as well as certain names that still come from that older Dalian tongue. So that's like maybe 15, 25% of the vocabulary. So anyway, so we have Amborian, and then we have Proto-Dalian, and then we have Trayan, and then we have what is called Proto-Trayan, which is the language of the stars. That's the language that the stars speak, and it's a reconstructed language because the only extant Proto-Trayan writing is actually the inscription on the Hur Orupen, the living sword, which is the mark of Amborian monarchy, and that's the only extant inscription. So, if you get Akborida, which is like the short collection of fiction and poetry that we released, that inscription is actually in there. But I have like a whole 30-page pseudo-academic treatise written on like trying to reconstruct Proto-Trayan from Old Trayan and from the swordblade inscription and stuff like that. So yeah, the rabbit hole goes a long way down when it comes to the language part of this.
Yeah. Ryan said he's a big fan of space fairies and wants to know when we can collaborate. So
oh, that would be the coolest thing.
I know, right?
Yes. Let's do it.
So tell me about the Well Priestess, and we'll wrap it up with this.
Yeah. So what do you? I mean, like.
Yeah, we've got the picture. I don't know if you can see the screen.
I actually don't, because if I was trying to watch myself slightly out of sync with myself,
it would drive me mad. Yeah. That way lies madness.
Yeah, that way lies madness. So, do you want me to just talk about like the Sacred Well religion, or
we've got you've seen the image that Bob put together for our Sacred Well Priestess. Yes. Talk to us about that. What are we looking at? Why is this important to the game?
Okay, so the Well Priestess that we see here in this image, the Well Priestesses are the functionaries of the primary Amborian religion, right? Which is the cult of the Sacred Wells. Cult in the old sense, like cultus, not like scary hoods, and that exists in the world as well. But no, the religion of the Sacred Wells, which is early on in the prehistory of the setting, there was a massive cataclysm, which is caused by the fall of some of the southern stars, different stars than the ones I was talking about earlier. But the fall of some of the southern stars actually being cast out of middle heaven to the earth, it resulted in this huge cataclysm, and basically, like, the sun, he started veering off of his course, and the seasons were all messed up, and there were floods and fires and earthquakes and things like this. So during this time of chaos, in order to deal with it, the oaths of earth and heaven were established. So the oaths of earth and heaven are a series of oaths that basically govern, the sun's going to enter and exit the gates of heaven at these appointed points throughout the year, right? And that there's going to be a the seasons will operate in this certain way, and the abyss is going to stay where it belongs, and the sea is going to stay where it belongs, and the fixed land is going to stay where it belongs, and so on. Well, the oaths of the earth and heaven were witnessed by an ancient race who, by the time the ancestors of the Amborians arrived at the inner sea, they were already all gone. By an ancient race, it was the Stone Kings. So the last of the Stone Kings, who's the only one who still knows the oaths of earth and heaven and how to continually, basically, perpetuate them and renew them. He is the Orusen, who's the head of the Dalian people that I talked about earlier. They migrate up and they find the ancient hero Orusen and his wife Asanya. They find who are the chief and the chieftainess of that people group. They find the last of the Stone Kings dying because he's been poisoned by the serpent, which is this cosmic force of chaos. And so they fight the serpent. Orusen fights the serpent and doesn't kill it initially, but eventually kills it. But while he is preparing to forge a weapon out of one of the serpent's scales that will be powerful enough to pierce the serpent's hide and kill it, his wife Pisanya is taught the oaths of earth and heaven by the last dying Stone King. That's the basis for the main Amborian religion, which is the cult of these sacred wells. So throughout the lands around the sea, there are naturally occurring wells or springs. And around these, basically shrines, temples, however you want to think about it, built. Some of them are quite large. Some of them are extremely, small, just like, very small, like rural shrine. Some of them are, massive, like monastery complexes. So the priestesses of the sacred wells, basically you say like the two sacramental or the two like ontological offices of the Amborian faith are the king and the queen. The king's job is to eradicate chaos and bring order. It's the job of the queen or of the well priestesses to maintain that order, to bear witness to the ancient covenants, and to keep the water cleansed. This is the other big thing in the setting, is that water has an ontological ability to sort of mediate earth and heaven. There's an ancient Amborian verse about this that goes, "Water holds the memory of starlight." So the idea that starlight communicates the fate of the world or the will of heaven to the earth, but the medium that communicates it is the water. So the image of like the starlight on the sea, the starlight on the rivers, right? So this is, the Amborians' name for the world is the world under starlight, right? Yeah. So all of this to say, the well priestesses are the people who do this, and they do it through a series of 5 daily services, 5 daily liturgical services. The most important one of which happens kind of early evening, is the cleansing of the water. So this is something they do daily, and then also on high feast days, they have a more elaborate version of it that they do. And so in this particular image, you shows a well priestess descending from the lip of the shrine. So basically, the stairs go all the way up. Our artist Bob Crum actually took my descriptions and made an incredible 3D model of the whole shrine.
Yeah,
it's really cool. I'm just, I'm amazed. It really says something about him as an artist, and also, I guess my descriptions were good enough that he was able to, I looked at it, I was like, oh yeah, that's it. That's exactly it,
Yeah.
But so she's descending from the lip of the well, the shrine, with basically a number of liturgical implements in hand. She has the mallet. And the mallet and the gong, which are used at certain times especially in the cleansing of the waters. There are moments in the cleansing of the water when there are sacred names that it would not be appropriate to speak out loud, such as the name of the last Stone King, which is something all well priestesses are taught when they reach a certain level of initiation, but which is never spoken out loud. So when it comes to the place in the service where you would name the name of the last Stone King, instead of saying his name, you would ring the gong. And there's some other times that it's rung as well. And then she's also carrying a net, and the net is like a small net made out of silver with silver mesh, and it's used to sort of ceremonially, ritually cleanse the waters of the sacred wells as part of the ceremony. So that's that's kind of what you're seeing there. One of the great things about all of this is that uh, there's rubrics for all of the stuff. When I say rubrics, I mean the exact text of all of the liturgical services, along with the seasonal variations for different times of year, certain high feast days or periods of like asceticism and fasting. All of that stuff exists. In fact, let me get this out of my backpack here.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about the Book of Odes.
So this is my Lulu printed spiral bound edited copy, which is it's called the Book of Odes, but it's actually just the first two books of Odes. There are five total volumes.
And that's available as an add-on on the Kickstarter.
Yeah,
to get
that's
that
going to
as a
be an
PDF.
add-on. Yeah, will be a PDF of this, and I'm currently working on editing and annotating it for this. But basically, it's the first book of Odes is the first 30. It's the first 30 main hymns or songs of the that basically like this is what every well priestess would memorize, and those 30 hymns are the basis of the five daily services, and then beyond that there's a bunch of stuff for the specific feasts throughout the year. So, yeah, this is so all of this stuff is going to be there. There will be snippets of it in the Thunder in the North book, so that because the idea is that if your players visit a well priestess or they go to a sacred well throughout in the course of an adventure, or you just have a character who is playing a priestess of the sacred wells, which is one of the main ritualist traditions in the game. I mean, magic in this game is not you don't have somebody who's like a wizard, right? But you have people who are tied to different ritualist traditions. So if you have somebody tied to a specific ritualist to a sacred well tradition, there will be basically excerpts from the liturgy throughout the year in an appendix of Thunder in the North. But then if you want like the rubrics and you want to get all the way down into the weeds, and spoilers, there's a bunch of cool Easter eggs and nuggets and stuff like that hidden in here, which would make for great things for adventures. Then yeah, we'll have that available as an add-on. Is it an add-on or is it a stretch goal? I don't even remember.
It's the PDF is an add-on at this point.
Cool.
I remember one of the first world building conversations we had. We had just started gaming together, and we had just started saying, okay, well, I got this thing called Calypsis, you got this thing called Amboria, and you sent me some things, and I sent you the Writ of Mysteries, and we both kind of came back and were like, huh. Because Starlight on water is so important to Amboria, and the memory of sunlight is on water is so important to the Luwathi people and Jackals. We're like, all right, we're gonna be friends.
Yeah.
So I think next time we'll talk Clash. Let's talk about why you selected Clash, what you've changed about Clash, and go forward from there. So we're going to try to do these one a week. We'll probably have one here in the next couple of days just to kind of keep going, talking about stretch goals and things. Thanks to everyone for showing up. I'm going to put a link on this on the Kickstarter when we post the... well, I'm probably going to put a link to it on the Kickstarter sooner than that, and then we're going to have that first bit of poetry going live as a backer thank you for day one here soon. So thanks to everyone who is watching this either live. Ryan, always great to chat with you. And again, love your work. Wear the t-shirt, and we will be back with more discussions with Richard over the next 39 days, because all good things happen in 40 days.
That's right.
All right, we'll see you all later. Have a good one.
Thanks everyone.